I'm going to go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Teresa Dodson. I'm the Senior Director of Partner Marketing here at SnapLogic, and we welcome you to our hands-on lab today with our SI partner, consulting partner, Elgin. And we have really been focusing with Elgin on Workday and building Workday pipelines and Workday workflows for HR processes. So we're very excited to be partnering with Elgin, and really excited to have you all here today to really get some hands-on experience with the product and around this employee onboarding use case. While we're waiting to get started, I know that Rich Dill and Diane Miller have been in the background working to set up your account. So I know that some of that is still happening. So while that's going, I'd like to for anyone who's ready and can start take this poll, I think that'd be really great. We just like to get some feedback from you on who's in the audience and kind of confirming what your challenges are and what your setup is. So I'm going to push this poll to you. Please feel free to respond, then I will share the results after everyone has responded. You'll have to scroll through. There's about 5 questions. It shouldn't take long, but we will get started in about 15 to 20 minutes. So I'll just push this poll now. This is great, seeing some good answers coming in. While you're taking the poll, I also kind of wanted to go over some housekeeping with you. We have a chat window that is, you notice the chat button. If you have any questions, you can go and push your question to everyone, and we'll make sure to answer your questions either during the session if we think that it is applying to everyone, or we can wait and answer questions at the end. Give you guys a few more minutes to complete the poll. How are we doing, Rich, on all the trial setups?
Oh yeah, everything's all set.
Okay, great. So we'll do 1 more minute on the poll. I'll push the results to everyone and then we can get started. Okay, in the poll. So now you can see the results. A lot of Workday people, back to 100%. It looks like somebody else is using Oracle as well as Workday.
What's going to happen?
We have, in terms of tracking applicants, 100% on Workday recruiting. Interesting. Data warehouse, Azure, SQL Server, and some one SAP. Interesting, no Redshift. Okay. And then BI solution, Power BI, and interesting that 100% of you use Excel. And then the mix of Excel use is varied from 30% to 70 to 100%, kind of mixed there. So that's interesting. And sort of on the high side for our employee onboarding, which is good to see. Okay, I think we have a good sense of the audience. I'll stop sharing the poll now. And I'd like to introduce Rich Deal. Rich Deal is SnapLogic's solution architect, and he knows the platform probably better than anybody. He's really an expert. So we're excited to have Rich leading this hands-on lab. And so take it away, Rich.
Okay, thanks, Teresa. Let me go ahead and share my screen. And put this thing in presentation mode. All right. Well, welcome, everyone. Thanks for taking some of your valuable time and giving it to us to illuminate, educate, and hopefully mildly amuse you in learning how SnapLogic allows you to simplify and expedite connecting the dots. In this case here, we're going to be talking about Workday and other applications, because today, you know, we live in a lot of different places and whatnot. And so let me go ahead and there we go. So it's not just me. I'm joined here by Zach and Jay from our partners with Elgin. These guys are really good. They know their stuff around Workday. While I may be an expert on SnapLogic and all of its nuances and capabilities, Zach and Jay, I think, are, you know, my functional equivalent when it comes to Workday. I will admit that, you know, it is a daunting platform to work with. Those of you that have spent any time with it know that everything is an element and a value. Everything. So it's a lot of fun to work with. But you know, what we brought together is a combination of technology and expertise so that you can leverage, so that you can see how you can take advantage of your domain experience and something like SnapLogic to be able to build these integrations in, you know, hours, not days or weeks. Okay, so Zach, do you want to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks for the setup. So I'm Zach Ledford. I'm the co-founder and principal at Eljun LLC. So we're an HCM technology and consulting shop. I'm coming to you with about 4.5, 5 years of experience at SpaceX, working as the HR manager of data and automation. So we were a Workday shop, so I've got tons of experience connecting systems inside the HCM space. So with Greenhouse, JobVite, the applicant tracking side, Workday, HCM, benefits, and some payroll pieces, working with Prism, and then other things inside the more general shared services space. So different data repositories, SQL Server was on there quite a bit, so a lot of experience there too, as well as things related to employee survey, facilities, food services, physical security, and a little bit of logistics and finance as well. So happy to be here and excited to get plugged in and walk you through what the platform can do.
Jay?
Yeah, thank you. My name is Jay Russell. I am part of the team, sales team here at Elgin, do a little bit of relationship management for our existing clients as well. I don't have near the pedigree of Zachary here, but I do come to you with over a decade of experience in software sales. And if you decide to engage in any of this stuff with Elgin, I will be there side by side with you to make sure we fit your needs and everything goes as smooth as possible for you. Look forward to sharing what we can do for your HR space here today.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Okay, so let's keep going. All right, so who is SnapLogic? Not everyone knows how wonderful we are, so this is a brief introduction to the fact that, you know, company's been around for a while. The founder of SnapLogic is one of the co-founders of Informatica. Gaurav Dhillon left Informatica at the turn of the century, took a few years off, and then founded SnapLogic in 2006. And since that time, we've gone through a couple of different evolutions. I think that SnapLogic is one of those rare companies that has actually undergone a fundamental shift in how they do business in terms of the fact that what you're seeing is the second generation of SnapLogic, which we referred to during its early development as tectonic, because it was a fundamental shift of how we presented ourselves to the customers. And since that time, we have been adding logos such as Adobe and AstraZeneca, Hitachi and SpaceX, because they see the value in our approach towards let's put an intelligent platform in the hands of smart people. Wonderful things will happen, and they do every day around the world when people use SnapLogic. So right now we're processing about 1.6 trillion documents a month. And to us, a document is a row of data, a SOAP message, a JSON document, any kind of chunk of information that has to be processed. All right. SnapLogic is not always the first integration platform as a service that companies buy, but given the fact that we have a 95% renewal rate, we're usually the last. So we have a lot of satisfied customers, and we have a lot of satisfied partners. Workday is not only a partner, but they are also a customer. They saw their customers rave or heard their customers rave about SnapLogic, and finally gave us a chance. So other companies like PwC are both partners and customers as well. So that shows you the kind of culture that we have, that we are in it for our customers to be successful, to help them, win the business, get the work done, and get stuff automated. So as I said, we have from A to Z, and well, this is actually a lot of A's and C's kind of thing, but these are some of the customers that we have to talk about in terms of the kinds of integrations and automations that we've done. So. There's a few here that I've actually worked with. Okay, and at this point here, I'll turn it over to Zach and let him tell you a little bit about their organization. Just let me know when you want me to forward.
And I'll actually tell you a little bit about the history of Elgin. As Zach already mentioned, he spent a few years at SpaceX and discovered SnapLogic and how it transformed their HR, and decided that he wanted to bring this to other HR departments out there. We do have a few co-founders. I am head of the sales team as well, but we are a young, nimble organization that's out to transform the way that you do HR, make things more accurate, automate it, and just a little bit easier all the way around to let you focus on getting and retaining the best talent and getting the best value out of your resources, both the data and the people within your organization. All right, let's go to the next one. And this is just a similar logo page. These are some of the logos where we already have assets already in place, making things easier. And another thing that I want to focus throughout this entire presentation, you're going to see some logos, you're going to see us demo some very specific things, but we work with virtually any application, not just in HR, but across your entire organization. You're going to see me and Zach do a demo in a bit. It's going to be simple because it is a demo, it is hands-on, but I want you to think about how it can extrapolate across your entire organization there.
Next.
Yes, please. Cool. So I'll hop in. Why are we here? Why are we talking about this? What does SnapLogic and sort of HCM have in common? Like what's the synthesis? So the bottom line is this, right? Your entire human capital management shared services space inside your organization is probably more complex now than it ever has been before, right? Whether you're using a highly sort of consolidated strategy, let's say that you're all in on Workday, you're going to have things that need to be pushed in and pushed out of that system that need to be integrated. If you're somebody who's using a federated best-in-class strategy where you've got a dedicated applicant tracking system that really fits your needs, Workday for your HRIS and maybe your benefits administration, something else for payroll, something else for timekeeping, something else for employee engagement. That's pretty common use case or sort of setup as well. But regardless of which sort of scenario or bucket you find yourself in, you have gaps in terms of moving data around, transforming it, and making sure that everything stays in sync. So what we want to do is figure out a way to really streamline the entirety of that stack. If you don't do that, then you start running some of the risks that you see sort of listed out here in the bulleted item, right? You're getting conflicting data. You're having data that's sort of siloed off and is being patched in or managed by somebody else. so that you're, maybe repeating work or missing parts of the equation. You've got a ton of integrations and it's sort of untenable, or you have a backed up IT department who's sort of struggling to go ahead and keep everything in line, or continually getting tasked on things that drive more upfront bottom line return value for the organization, as opposed to some of the business support services, which frequently kind of get pushed down to the bottom of the list in terms of resourcing from different sort of internal resources. And you've also got single points of failure, right? If you're inside of Workday, you might have Workday Studio experts. That's a pretty difficult skill set to find, particularly if you're looking for somebody who's got the intersection of Workday Studio and understands the security model and has done implementation and knows about the other modules or things that you might have tacked on. There's a 5-6 person pod frequently to kind of get that application to really do all the great things that it can do. There are ways to short circuit that a little bit using something like SnapLogic. Okay, next slide, please.
Nope, sorry.
Thanks. So why SnapLogic, why Elgin, why that combo, right? We're bringing the domain subject matter expertise inside of the HCM space. We're going to talk a lot about Workday today, but as Jay intimated, kind of abstract this out to broader solutions that you might have. We're fairly agnostic. The unifying themes that we understand, not just HR technologies, but the use cases and business processes that you're likely facing day in and day out, because we've lived and breathed in that space for a long period of time. So what you can do using iPaaS, I was a customer at SpaceX of SnapLogic. I ran the RFP to do evaluations on iPaaS solutions, made the internal pitch to get the advocacy support built for that, and then implemented the tool in that case. So I went from customer now to partner because I'm that excited and eager about the product and what it can do. The main thing that you're going to see is that there's an ability here for you, whether you're sort of a savvy IT practitioner or somebody who falls more in the citizen integrator model, where maybe you're like a earlier stage HRIS analyst. You're able to kind of bridge the gap between what's going on in your world in HR and what's happening inside of IT. You can also, if you're somebody who's more in the business support side, or you're in a management or higher role and need to articulate something like a monetized ROI for why you should be doing something, or why integrations matter, right? Beyond just sort of the pain you feel day in and day out. There's a way working with SnapLogic and with Elgin to help calculate or put together a monetized ROI that's grounded in reality that you can use to sort of help make your lives better, de-risk your business, and make things more streamlined. We'll show you how easy it is to connect to hundreds of applications or any sort of generic REST or SOAP service that might be out there. All of this sort of allows you to democratize your data and automation processes and workflows inside of your organization, which is really important because you have competition for resources inside of any organization. So if you can empower some of your people in the front line within the business organically to do more, and to do it in a way that is sort of sanctioned and centralized, controlled, and that works, why wouldn't you do that, as opposed to having sort of like a rogue or shadow IT element sort of infiltrating your business and support services elements? The bottom line here is that everything we're going to talk to you about, it's going to save you time, save you money, reduce risk for your business. And so those are things that should resonate with everybody. All right, next slide, please. Cool. So last slide before we actually jump into the demo and kind of get things working. So the use case we're going to talk about today, broad strokes, is about automating your onboarding process and people analytics. And we like this use case because it's something that everyone can relate to, and because it really shows off like some of the things the product can do in terms of touching multiple systems and handling things coming from your source of record for these purposes out of Workday. So this is a really great way to get employees, the equipment and access that they need. A way for you to sort of just put information in once, never have to touch it again, let that sort of automated data chain of custody percolate through the rest of your organization. So to things like your learning management system, your CRM, any of your homegrown bespoke apps that you might have deployed inside of your organization, even everything through connecting to Excel workbooks that you might have somewhere local inside of your network. Really, there's really no limit to what you can do in sort of combining things together. So you kind of, see workflows get unified. That'll set the stage for doing like really deep people analytics inside of a people data warehouse. If you don't have that today, we can help you get that created. It's a super, super important thing to have as you're trying to conduct your enterprise analytics and understand your business. Your people are your business. If you don't understand your people, you don't know what your business is doing in a really important way. So we can kind of help unpack that a little bit. And then I won't read through all these, but I'll kind of hop down to the bottom right. Here's broad strokes ROI for something, around the annualized ROI that you could expect to get out. Over 3,000 hours of time saved. This is sort of cost savings, both from automation and from reducing your developer time. So I've seen 5 to 10x in terms of time reduction for sort of a savvy developer. And then there's others that are true net new sort of citizen integrator users that couldn't do any integrations at all. Now we're able to, right? And so you have a functional lower operational expense to get that delivery out. You'll see the labor savings at over $120,000 a year. And then there's also a risk avoidance, right? And so this is something that as you're working through these workflows, helps to shore up things that you might have as a risk exposure, either because of compliance issues or related to something like a wrongful termination suit or class action, right? There's ways through these workflows to help protect your organization from those kinds of things. And if you haven't seen it yet, you should. You don't have to just take our word for it. There's also a Gartner report that talks about a 498% ROI using SnapLogic holistically across your organization. So if that's something you haven't seen yet, I'd encourage you to take a look at that as well. All right, next slide. Cool. So we can actually get to the hands-on demo portion of the presentation. So we're going to go through 3 different use cases. Jay and I are going to walk you through through all 3 of these. And we're going to start off kind of taking a look at, a very simple use case, democratizing your data pool and doing a basic reporting on it. Use case 2 will show you how you can use that same pattern to push information into some other systems, do an integration. And then use case 3 will show you sort of the groundwork for doing the setup for a cloud-based people data warehouse. You could absolutely abstract that to something like, SQL Server if that's something that you had hosted on-prem.
Okay.
All right, so we'll hang out here briefly. So lab 1, this is all about getting your information out of Workday and doing something with it. So you've got a couple of really what sound like straightforward tasks. With SnapLogic, they will be, but I promise you, if you weren't using this and you're coming in through web services, this would be anything but a straightforward task. What we're going to do is connect to Workday. We're going to get information out of Workday about our employees, about our workers, to use sort of the language inside of Workday. We're going to transform that data into something that's a little bit easier to work with and readable with human eyes. And then we're going to route that data using a parameter. So we're going to say, if employees live in a certain location, let's put that into one workflow. And if they live in another location, let's put that to a different workflow. And then we're going to use that data and we're going to build out a CSV report and download it, right? So get information out of your system, do some stuff with the information to clean it. Let's do a little bit of baseline logic, and then let's write a report. And the reason you should care about this is this is really the fundamentals in terms of building out what you need to do your comprehensive automation of really almost any HCM task, but specifically for onboarding and for your people analytics. So Rich, I'm gonna take and share my screen to pull up the lab.
Yeah. As we transition to Zach presenting, I think one thing that I would like to remind you is that as we've been talking about this problem or this opportunity and the tasks that we have, traditionally it comes down to the onboarding process, which is automating a transaction of sorts, where you're doing a particular process. But then there's another thing where you need to do batch processes, or you want to get a large amount of data and put it into Prism or Snowflake or AWS or whatever for your analytics. SnapLogic is one of the few products out there that can do both, those automations as well as move data at scale. So you're not buying 2 different tools to solve the problem. You're using one platform that, whether you're moving a row of data or a petabyte of data, the pipeline looks the same. Okay. Commercial's over. Proceed, Zach.
No, I appreciate it. It's a good call out, right? There are other tools. That was one of the things that was a delineator for us in the as a previous customer, right? It's one of the major sort of appeals. I'm glad you called that out explicitly. All right, so you should, in theory, have seen something like this on your own end as you were brought into your trial tenant within SnapLogic. So we're here at the designer, and you can find all of these resources available to you underneath pipelines on the left, looking under the Feb 23 workshop, and then looking under the shared folder. So lab 1, 2, and 3 are really the things that we're focusing on here. Lab 1's where we're going to start. So I'm going to kind of orient you really quickly to what we're seeing. I'll show you how easy it is to kind of like build this piece out, and then we're going to release you into the wild, and you can pepper us with questions, and we'll help you out to get this thing kind of up and running on your own end, and then we'll kind of chug along. So this first one is lab 1. Broad strokes, what we're doing is just what I talked about before in the learning objectives. We're going to read information from Workday. This is just to kind of control the number of records we get, so we're not just inundated with data. We're going to do some transformation here with a mapper. We're going to route the data based on location. We're going to format that so we can write it to a CSV, and then we're going to write the file to a report for us to do something with. So the first thing that you're going to need to do is actually do the Workday read. So if you click into snaps, you can actually search through and find what you're looking for very, very easily. And that's a Workday read snap. So that's what you're seeing here. Inside of the Workday read snaps, you're going to need to add an account. So you should have access to this one, the Workday PT1. So you'll just add an account or select that account and put that into the snap. But what I want to show you is this. So what's really cool about the Workday read snap is if you have any experience using something like Workday Studio or generic SOAP services to connect to the web services and Workday, it can be really pretty difficult to get that to work and to figure out exactly what you're doing. The API documentation, the web service documentation from Workday is extensive. But what's really cool here is that it's really intuitive to navigate, right? So the first thing I want to do is say, hey, what service do I want? We're interested in people. If you've done things with custom reports or with Prism or with integrations work inside of Studio and Workday, this will probably look a little familiar. These are kind of like some of the same things you would see if you were building on a custom report. Staffing is the service we want, but these are all the available services just presented to us, nice and clean, easy to see what they are, easy to figure out what we wanted. And underneath each service, you have a business object to actually refer to, right? In this case, I'm using the function get workers, but now I also see a subordinate list associated just with staffing that lets me see all the different things that I might want to pull out. So it's 2 clicks and go. And at that point, we're able to actually start getting information out of Workday. So you can do that with your own snap as you're setting it up. Delete this one real quick. And you'll execute using this little cog with a V in it. That'll run a validation of the pipeline. What's cool about that is inside of here, you'll get a little data preview that pops up in between these connectors. And so we can actually see kind of like a real-time output of what that service, that get worker provided to us. So let me just pop open one. And what you'll notice is that there are quite a few things that are available to us that came back from this really straightforward get workers staffing call. And so as you're looking at all this, this is all for one employee. You might be thinking, okay, well, how are we supposed to do something useful with that? And it's a really good question. It is a comprehensive service, but it is a daunting one, certainly. I'll call out too, if you want to kind of short circuit these things as you're making your own pipeline, you can do that by pressing the little plus here to add a pipeline and get things going. You can always copy and paste. So if you want to kind of like, flip to the back of the book like it's high school and grab the answers out, you can just sort of right click and copy. And that'll help you short circuit what we're doing here a little bit as you're deving out. So just as a side note as I'm talking through. Tail, all we're doing here is restricting the number of records we're going to get. So we're going to say, hey, don't give me more than 40. That's all that's happening here. So it's literally grab the Workday read. Any of these items you can just search for. There's a tail, and I'm just going to grab that and drag and drop it. And now it's connected. You see how this little piece changed symbol? If it's dark, that means those are connected. They'll move around with each other. If they're separated.
Oh, come on, you have your sound turned off. I don't hear the snap.
I don't know. I like to listen to music. There is a really nice audio feedback that Rich is referencing that you'll kind of get that audio confirmation along with the visual, which is actually a really nice feedback mechanism. I've gotten so used to it, Rich. I'm just relying on the visual.
How I know my sound's on.
All right, now let's hop into like the mapper, right? So this is another snap. Again, you can just sort of search for. This is where a lot of like the really, really cool stuff is happening. Not that wasn't already. What we're going to see here is sort of all of that information from the Workday side sort of organized for us, and it's also searchable, right? So you can actually kind of break these things out, pop them open, find the elements that you might want to see. You can search through things. Or maybe I'm looking for birth date. Here it is. And all you have to do is sort of add those elements over. You can kind of explore these on your own as you're going through it. Is just click this little plus sign. On the left-hand side, I say I want birth date coming from Workday. I'll drag and drop that there. Now we get a preview of it. And then I can just sort of dictate whatever I want this side to be. So just say this is date of birth, right? And so for subsequent parts in the pipeline, these things are now mapped, right? Which is great. This one technically has to be converted, so I'll do that real quick. I'm just converting that from an array to a string. And real time, I can see that array sort of element fall off and the string presented. So it's really easy to see a preview of not only the Workday sort of services and objects, but also the things that are available in the schema to play with. And you can see things in the target schema, which I won't talk about too much because Jay's going to talk about that a little bit more in Lab 2. So the goal here is at a minimum to set up this site name piece, which inside of the Workday context is going to be under this sort of longer piece. You're looking for address data. And so on your own, as you're going through your mapper and you're trying to find what you're looking for, just search for address data, and that will kind of help you short circuit what you're looking for. All right. Other piece, and as we're kind of moving along here, we're going to use a router. And this is what I was talking about before, to do an evaluation and say, hey, send one criteria to one workflow, send another criteria to another workflow, pop that open. Site name is the thing that we mapped, right? That you're going to pull out for the location. And this sort of double, this underscore thing, this is a parameter we set for the pipeline. So what we're saying here is if the site name is equal to this location value, put it on the top row. Otherwise, if that's not met, check if one equals one is true. That's always true. Send everything else functionally down to this other pipeline or this other, other sort of stream or part of the workflow. So very briefly, to see your parameters, that's going to be here, this little pencil, pen, and document symbol. Here is where we set that parameter up. You're welcome to go ahead and change this right now. It's set to New York. I know Chicago and San Francisco are also data elements that should be available inside of the data you're going to be pulling from Workday. So you can change these parameters to whatever you want to, and that then functionally will say, hey, don't send the New York stuff here on this top piece to my report. Send Chicago or San Francisco or whatever else you wanted to send. And we're almost done. You're going to throw a CSV formatter snap down, which again, you can find by searching over here. You don't need to do anything to that other than just drop it in. And then we're going to do a file writer. And again, just kind of drag and drop that into where it needs to go. And on this one, all you really need to do is to name this something. Just make sure that you have it ending with this .csv so that whenever we download it and open it up, we can actually know, like your computer will know basically like what kind of file format it is. What I've done here is said with this little preview, start with employees at, kind of concatenate in the location of the parameter we used, and then get me the date. But you can absolutely make this whatever you want to, right? This could really just be something as simple as, you know, test.csv, and that's just as fine. Both will work. And so real quick, before I stop talking and you guys can start hitting us with questions and walking through the build on your own, we want to preview out what we've actually written here. And we can do that by going into the manager. I usually open that up in a new tab. And I'll just go to the one that I had opened already. And then right here are sort of the files that we've run or that we've created, right? So inside of the Feb 23 workshop and the shared space. And so ultimately what you're going to be getting is we're going to go from a generic Workday connection to generating a report inside of Excel, something that we're all familiar with that looks like this. So we're getting first names, last names, emails, usernames, the employee number, you know, their title, the manager, employee number, all this kind of great stuff that we would want from the HR system. So I'm going to stop there. I'll leave this piece up and sort of kick it back to you guys for a little bit of time to kind of experiment, play around. I know that was quick. It's only 6 snaps, but there is a lot. So for sure, ask questions. We're happy to kind of help hop in and guide you through.
Any questions as we start? You can either do, speak up or, put something in the chat window. You can send it to Zach, Jay, or myself. And we can help you out if you have any questions. But enjoy, explore, experiment.
I'm gonna hop out of the sharing actually, so it's a little bit easier for me to navigate the chat as stuff comes in. And chat's fairly quiet. If anybody has any issues connecting or anything else too, or you're not sure where to navigate inside the environment, or there's anything like that, put your hands up too, and we'll make sure that we're good to go there.
Sure. 1 second, Allison. Diane, is Allison one of the people that has one of the SSO accounts, or is she using her own? Okay. When you validate, okay, so when you drag the snap onto the canvas, your it does not have an account associated with it. So the first thing that you do after you drag the Workday snap or any endpoint snap onto the canvas is you need to associate an account with it. So go into accounts, and under accounts, you'll see an account there. That's what you're going to use and say, okay, I want to use this account. Then go back to the other screen and select the staffing and object. And when you click the save button, it will use that account to connect to the Workday instance and pull down the preview data. Now, if you are a hot rod and you be jamming with Workday and you know your credentials and all that happy stuff, you could probably do the same exercise using your Workday account credentials, but you'd have to obviously know your URL, your tenant, and all the rest of that happy stuff. But I would suggest so you're not getting caught up in administrivia stuff, to use the account that we've given you and then follow the instructions that we had in the demo. Okay, so that's that one. Are we supposed to see the February 23rd workshop is what we call a project space. And what you see is that workshop, and then underneath that, there's a shared project, which is underneath that, think of it like a file folder, and it contains all of the shared accounts and resources and artifacts that we're using as part of this workshop. Each one of you has your own project. Brian, Bridget, David, that we've created. You have permissions to that. So you can go into shared and copy the lab one by going up to the opening up the lab pipeline and then looking up on the toolbar and deciphering the hieroglyphs to figure out which one is the copy icon. And then you can make a copy and it'll then say, okay, I want this to be in the project space into Karen's folder, and it'll be placed in your folder. There you'll have access to all the accounts and all the information, but there'll be a local copy that you can slice and dice and change as you see fit. Okay. You don't need to use Allison, are you using your corporate email address, or are you using one of the SSO org names that we created?
It's her account, Rich.
Okay, so you should have received an email from SnapLogic that has your email address and this pretty funky alphanumeric mishmash of characters. That is your default first-time password. So check your email, and you would have received that within the last day from SnapLogic. And check your spam folder, because obviously it's got multiple links in it and everything else. So some spam, some mail systems are a little tighter than others. So if you can't find the email, you can go to elastic.snaplogic.com, put in forgot password, and put in your email address, and it will resend a new password to you within 30 seconds. So HTTPS elastic.snaplogic.com, that should get you to the login page, and then just click the forgot password link, put in your email address, and you will get a new password. It's only good for, I think,
24 hours.
4 hours. Okay.
24.
Oh, 24. Oh, okay.
24.
Yeah, that was when it was only set at like 2 hours. It was a real pain, you know.
And if that still doesn't work, ping me and I will give you a temporary account to use.
Yeah, I created a few if we had some people come in with SSO orgs. How's everybody else doing? As you can tell, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a question. Number one, I didn't get any of this info about lab stuff, so I'm a little behind. So I'll try to see if I can get that password reset and get in there and play around. But I've been doing a lot with Workday integrations, Workday Studio, so on and so forth. So one of the questions I have is, so you're calling the get worker API call, and I'm wondering, like, security wise. So if we have developers that we want to be able to fetch data from Workday, but we don't want them to see, say, things like, I don't know, birth date, let's just use birth date in your example. Like, are you doing that security on the connector account level, or how would you advise us doing that if we have certain, because we have integrations with payroll, benefits, very, very sensitive integrations. And so we're going to want our IT developers to be able to work with those things to an extent, but I'm going to have issues with security. So
for sure. It's a really good question. You can manage all of that using the same techniques you would today directly inside of Workday with your ISSGs and your ISU accounts. So leverage the security model that Workday provides natively, and that's going to be your best bet to sort of control what can and can't be exposed. Your other option is always to create a custom report or something like that in Workday, expose that as a web service that you can use a REST call instead. And that way, if you want like absolute 100% guarantee, these are the fields that are coming out and nothing else, but you still want to have that available for integrations or data moves, you can do it with a RAS as well. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. So that's kind of because where I always get frustrated is I build the same integrations over and over and over again. Same data, first name, last name, employee ID, email address, over and over and over again. So I'm looking at this solution as potentially having some, like a RAS or like, I don't know, a couple of different data sets that I could repurpose. So anytime I have a new integration and I know I have this core worker data set, I can just like plug that in and go, instead of, because what we do today is we build a new report, a new ISSG, a new ISU, and we just repeat over and over and over again. And it feels like I don't need to do that. So is that a safe way of thinking about that?
That is 100% true. Yeah. The other thing you could do as well is you could build out the pipeline that you needed, like your baseline pattern that you wanted, and then expose that entire pipeline to an API endpoint as well. And then you could hand that off to whoever needed it, or invoke that entire pattern for some of your other builds, right? That way you're also only doing change management and that sort of whole dev process on that one pattern that you're invoking in multiple places. That's a huge for sure.
That's where I'm seeing the greatest value in this, is like, because again, a lot of times it's the same core data, and there might be like a couple fields that a vendor doesn't want, but if I had that master data set for that, most of our integrations are employee demographic data, right? We're setting up a new system, we're trying to get employees into the system, we're going to turn on Okta single sign-on, and we're just trying to get those core accounts set up. So if I could just hand that off and be like, here you go, you already have this. And then I guess from a security perspective, one final question would be, would you, if it's API connections, would you provide that each vendor just sharing the same ISU, or would you break those apart? Like and maybe, I don't know, this is more of an internal security discussion, but just curious what you've seen there.
Yeah, I kind of err on the more cautious side in terms of provisioning and maintaining the access control list. So I still typically will provision out like a dedicated ISU as opposed to cross-pollinating with different vendors. You certainly can do that though. It really is, you can. It's up to you in terms of what your security model looks like for your business and what you're comfortable with.
So you would potentially have a single security group and then just start plugging in ISU accounts. That way, if a vendor offboards, you just pull that account and you're, okay.
Yep, exactly. So you take care of all your access control that way. Yep. And
then in your demo example, you did a very simple CSV file. I'm assuming, we have full control over how we deliver that. It could be pipe delimited text. It could be, we can wrap data points in quotes. Like, is that all configurable in the UI?
For sure. Yeah. And you're working with JSON sort of natively as you're working through with SnapLogic, right? You can do other sort of conversions and things to manipulate it, but yeah, there's really no limit to what you want to do with something like that. I mean, there's even like a payroll use case. You want to get old school with like fixed width files, right? And start using like mainframe standard. You can do that too. Like, it's natively supported.
The other thing is you can have two sets of credentials, one set that you use for development and one set you use for production. SnapLogic has the concept of orgs, because most of our customers have a dev environment where they use development data, development accounts, they're building things. Then you have a test environment where you validate that the stuff works, and then you have a production environment where you're working with live data, so to speak. And what you can do is in each one of those stages, they're physically and logically isolated from one another. So you have 3 sets of Workday accounts, let's say, use one set of accounts in the dev environment where you're seeing one set, use another set of accounts in test where you're validating, and then you run it in production, and you're using the production accounts. And within the platform, you have the ability at the org level to disable that data preview. So your cloud ops people, your operations people cannot see the data that's flowing through the system. So, and that is something that allows you to have that visibility where necessary for development. I can't write a JavaScript expression against the structure unless I can see the input and the output. It's kind of hard for me to do my work if I can't see. So we work with dummy data when we're doing things with sensitive information. And this is a common problem I've heard for HR systems for the past 20 plus years. So it's always going to be a problem. And Workday's provided a security model. SnapLogic has provided an operational model where put together with best practices defined with people who have long and hard-won experience like Zach can say, this works. This secures your data, but allows you to innovate. And that's what it really should be. Does that help?
Yeah, we don't do this today, but I've been exploring, in Workday, you get you have a preview tenant, a sandbox tenant, an implementation tenant, so on and so forth. So we have quite a few tenants, and long term, I'd like to be able to, you can obfuscate the data in those non-production tenants. So you can scramble it all up. That way you can give your developers access to build, but not be looking at that sensitive data. And then, yeah, like you said, in your deployment process, you just plug in your ISU for the production tenant, and then you'd probably need an HR person going and validating the accuracy of data. But you can, because that is a big challenge today, is, somebody non-HR person, or just people in general, there's people in HR that shouldn't see certain data. So can I go back? Sorry to hog the conversation, but can I go back and just ask a question? Like, how do I get into the demo tenant? Because I guess I never saw an email or anything about setting up. Should I be registering for a free trial? And then I went to that SnapLogic.
I will send you credentials you can use.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then how long do we have access to this? Is it just during this session, or will we have access to play around for a couple of days? Or
this is in our trial org, and our trial is typically 30 days. So I will leave this access available.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Great questions, great conversation. Keep those coming for sure. I do want to hop us into use case 2, just so we can kind of like show you some of the other things that you're able to do, kind of keep the wheels spinning. So Jay, I'm going to kick it to you, but you've got the one slider to take a look at real quick. So let me screen share, and I'll bring up slide 2 or lab 2 and let you take it away.
All right, thank you, Zach. I am going to show you how to use that pattern that you just built in the first lab and expand that across the HR organization. Again, this is going to be focused on onboarding. I'm going to show you how to take that Workday data that you have, manipulate it just a little bit, but put it into a couple different popular applications. And while I'm doing that, I want you to think about your current situation and how many times you have to repeatedly manually input data or mess with Excel spreadsheets. We're going to take care of all of that in this next lab, show you how to connect to all the systems across your organization. And again, keep that data accurate and instantly update all the applications at the same time. We're not going to rebuild everything. We're going to use that same pattern that you just did. And this is just going to build the foundation to automating virtually every transaction involved with onboarding. And with that, I'm going to jump right in and show you my lab 2 here. If I can share my screen. All right, can you all see that?
Yes.
Perfect. You take a look at the top. This is the exact same pattern that you guys built. Again, we're not going to reinvent everything. You already have that data taken out of Workday. And because we put this router in here, we can route it to as many different tools as we need. The first snap that you're going to use is the copy. And just like in the first one, you click on the snap tab here, type in copy, and just drag and drop it down. The copy allows you to take the data as it is in this snap and bring the exact copy down here and multiply it across as many different pipelines as you need to get it to the end results. Again, I'm going to show you the ServiceNow and the Salesforce snaps that we have here. Once you have the data copied, again, you can take a look at a preview every step of the way. This is just another way that SnapLogic saves you some time, allows you to see exactly what you're doing with your data every step instead of waiting all the way to the end to see that you forgot something. We are going to use these customized mapper. They're going to look very similar to the mapper that Zach showed you up here, but they are customized for these, the different applications that we are kicking the data to. And they do that through what we call data introspection. You already saw the mapping table from that first lab. All the input that we have that we took from Workday. However, SnapLogic gives you this extra set to let you know the target schema on the right side. This means that you can create the fields, or the Snap is smart enough to know exactly what information can get over to ServiceNow. And let's say you are previewing all this data. Everything looks great, but you happen to forget something. You wanted gender included in the report for ServiceNow. All you do is you click the plus right here in the middle of the mapping table. And we're not sure exactly what gender is called over here. You do a quick search and it brings it up and you drag and drop. Same thing on the target side. Again, let's just check it out, make sure everything is looking okay. And yes, we have that data looking exactly the way that we want here. And now we have an onboarding report that's a little bit different than all the other ones. When you make this report, let's make it easy to ID as well. And again, SnapLogic's all about customization. So now as you get further down the pipeline, you get a little bit more complicated. You know exactly what report that you're looking at. Click save at the top here. And then you just connect it to the ServiceNow insert. The same thing with Salesforce on the bottom here. Once this runs, I can show you. Everything looks very similar. If you forgot something, you could very easily add it right here. SFDC, onboarding, Salesforce. And now you have this exact same data that you took out of Workday, customize it, and you customize it even a little bit further with just a few more snaps so that ServiceNow and Salesforce could understand and read this. Another great thing about this pipeline, this isn't just for when you get new hires and put their information in Workday. It is great because it'll kick it over to ServiceNow and Salesforce as is, automatically and accurately. However, if you update any data within Workday as well, later on somebody changes their last name, it will kick it out to the other pipelines as well. And think about how this data can be used across the entire organization, not just these two instances, not just HR. And that really is the magic of SnapLogic, making it quick and easy to do exactly that. So take a look at a couple of these snaps, build them into your pipeline. And again, we'll wait here to answer your questions.
Cool. Thanks, Jay. And we will show you before we get off the call, like a full production sort of scenario for employee onboarding. And you'll see, you know, Jay's talking about ServiceNow and Salesforce here. A lot more sort of apps that you can sort of pull in, and even subordinate pipelines, like pipelines calling, you know, child pipelines, doing your entire sort of analytics suite. But this is, to Jay's point, full fully available as long as your receiving service is sort of CRUD enabled. You can absolutely manage all of that from one place here and sort of keep everything absolutely in sync.
Jay, could you go back to the transform to snow mapper for a second? Scroll down a little bit to where you have some string literals, or is everything in there expressions? Oh, go to the Salesforce one, the one that has string literals in it. So yeah, map to SFT. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, what I wanted to show is if you look at the mapping table on the left here, you'll see that dummy AI is a static value. So every record that goes through is going to have that value. Whereas where the equal sign is highlighted, that indicates that is either a reference to the document, $email, or it's a JavaScript expression. So if you can write an expression in Excel, you can probably write that complementary expression in SnapLogic. Can you open up the expression editor for a moment? Just click on email. In the little box. No, the little box, upper right-hand corner, the little box where it says output preview.
Here, I got you, Jay. Let me hop in. Yeah, Jay, if you stop your screen share, I'll pull it up real quick. Thanks.
Sorry.
It's all good.
You can, yeah. Open that up
in here, and then let's go right here.
One caution about while we pride ourselves on making the UI user friendly and intuitive and all of those buzzwords and compliant whatnot, there are some subtleties to the UI that require highlighting. This expression builder allows you to get access to all of the information that's coming in. And also build a simple expression and validate it that it is valid before you go any further. So that instant verification, dynamic validation, as you build an expression in here. So, and this is available throughout the platform. Anywhere that you see a combination of that equal sign and a text box, it can be either a static value or as Zach has already demonstrated, it can be passed in as part of the pipeline value, his New York value, or it can be a JavaScript expression. So there's a lot of flexibility and a lot of capability within this platform as well. So to your point, Brian, the same pipeline past parameters could handle multiple use cases. So rather than build 5 integrations, you'll build one that handles 5 different use cases.
Cool. I appreciate you calling that out too, Rich. Yeah, it's an enormously powerful capability, and it is as easy as sort of as you kind of think about the sort of things that you might want to do, you can just kind of come in here and click, and that'll automatically populate it in the expression builder as well, right? You've also got your input schema values to work with, so kind of combining those is super easy. The other thing too to kind of keep in mind is every snap also has a really convenient sort of like in situ embedded help links to documentation. So clicking those are going to bring you right into the documentation, and it's one of my actually one of my favorite things, even though it's not technically in the tool, like, because it's so helpful. Like, you've got extremely well built and organized documentation. There's like it kind of strikes that really good balance between being like very helpful without like inundating you and beating you over the head with like too much information. And frequently at sort of like as you go through, there's also actual sort of examples in video and even entire pipelines you can download to help you troubleshoot your own questions or problems. So you have that available to you right in the tool, super easy to get out. I still use that pretty regularly to reference out when I have a question on something, particularly if it's a snap I haven't used in a little while.
Can I ask a couple more questions if nobody else has any? So this is great. I mean, it's got my brain going overload right now, but that ServiceNow example is super relevant to me. And so my first question would be, what if I wanted 2 paths for different worker types. So let's say I want one path for an employee worker type, but I want a different path for a contingent worker type. What does that look like, I guess? And is that one project, if you will, or is it multiple?
So we've kind of set the stage with that using the router step already. What you could do is, as you're pulling in your ServiceNow stuff here, let's just sort of pull this off for a second. So let's just say this is.
I guess what I'm saying is I think it's two different transformations, maybe.
Right, but is the root data the same in terms of like?
I think so. It's all in Workday worker data, right? And then.
Yeah. So I might do
I think the source would be the same, but the destination and the transform might be different.
For sure. So I would do something like this, and I would say, let's grab this data coming in, pull it to a router. Here's where I would say, let's do a check on the different worker types coming in from Workday. Mm-hmm. And so let's just say the top one is going to be for your regular employees, bottoms for your contingent worker type. And then I'm going to kind of fake the copy a little bit. Yep. Yeah. Paste that. Let's drop this off. And now inside of this snap, that's where I would do the different transformations that were necessary, and could also change, the ServiceNow web service if that was something that you needed to do too, right? But you can keep the root data the same and just sort of add in your routing logic like super easily.
Yeah. Okay. And then my second question would be, I'll just give you the real example. We have a learning management LMS system, mm-hmm. and we feed records from Workday. And I have additional attributes of employees that I want to bring in, like it's sales territory assignment related information, like zone, territory, region, zip codes that somebody covers, things like that. That data is not in Workday, and I don't think I want to put it in Workday. It's currently living inside of Salesforce, Viva CRM. Can I have two sources and join them together and then feed them down? And
yes.
Kind of what does that look like?
Yes, you absolutely can. So you would do another sort of a get to get information out, right? So you've got these other Salesforce things here. Let's just say this is going to be a read. As these are coming in, you would need to know what your unique identifier or sort of like foreign key would be to join those things together. So say in this case, maybe it's employee number, if that's percolating out everywhere. And you would just kind of do whatever you need to do to clean the data on each side, and you'd use a join, right? That allows us to merge multiple sources together into one stream. And then you've got like just like a regular SQL join would work. You've got the output the way that you need it. Yep. And you can do that with as many sources as you want and as many target sources as you want in terms of what you have going on in your pipeline.
Yeah. And then I'm assuming like I can normalize the data too. Like if I've got, I don't know what the example would be. Let's say I have regions A, B, and C, but I want the output to say East, West, and South. I can transform that data within the SnapLogic project.
Yeah, you do that in the mapper.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. So
in this example here, this is like a real-time integration, right? So this is not file-based. This is going directly from the Workday read into ServiceNow. And then do you schedule that? I mean, or is that just, what does that look like? Can you feed that on a schedule, or is it just real time, or what does that look like? Or both? So I'm assuming both.
Yeah, that's good questions. You can do both. So you can schedule it on just like a recurring basis for whatever cadence, you want to have. You can also, because you can expose the entire pipeline, to become itself like an API endpoint, you could just invoke that web service as like a trigger or off of a trigger. So from outbound, from whatever you want to instigate that action or that pipeline. So you would invoke the pipeline, essentially that would pass the relevant documents into that stream, and then it would be processed through the pipeline. So you can do either. It's just sort of up to you. The biggest limitation, candidly, is on like how easy it is to invoke a web call from your instigating source, right? There's nothing on the SnapLogic side that sort of prevents you from doing anything. It's always with where your point of origin, but there's always a way to kind of like get that to work for sure.
And I'm assuming like people have done like the types of integrations with ServiceNow that I'm thinking of are an onboarding event occurs, pushes in a new employee record, and then it can just start kicking off catalog tasks and workflows within ServiceNow. Same thing with offboarding. I mean, is that kind of what you guys are seeing there?
Yep, you can get as crazy with it as you want to. I mean, absolutely. So I've done that in ServiceNow. You mentioned an LMS earlier too. We've done things like, you know, as part of the onboarding process, push someone in, create an LMS account, but then also auto enroll an employee based on the metadata that was sort of pulled in during the onboarding process from Workday, and use that to auto enroll them in different sort of like courses and classes. You can manage all that as long as your LMS has the API endpoints for it or the web services. Yeah.
We do that using SnapLogic. We use SkillJar, and we have processes where, you know, I onboard partners, and when I add them to the platform and to the other sites, they're automatically enrolled in our learning management system on the partner integrator library and added to Salesforce. So you've got a complete automation pipeline that ties together like 5 different endpoints, creating the users with one web form of input.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I'm gonna keep us moving a little bit just because I'm aware of the clock moving. We'll hop into the last sort of demo so you can see one additional thing I think it's really important to see, and then we'll kind of round up. Certainly available to answer questions as we go along, and then offline as a follow-up too with whatever you've got as you're playing with things. So lab 3, we're going to use this. We're going to build off of lab 1 and lab 2. The final sort of step here is to show you, you know, we've done get data out of Workday, write it to a report, get data out of Workday, integrate it with some sort of downstream systems. Now we're going to go ahead and use that data, and while those other activities are happening, actually start to build out our people data warehouse as well. And so in the same workflow, we're actually going to go ahead and write data into a cloud database called Snowflake. And so I'll show you that as well. And that really cool thing is that, you know, you're hoping it's starting to kind of like click, you know, a little bit. Like you've now got your data rights in terms of where all your reporting is going to originate from, and also the data that's real-time integrating to other systems. All of it's being managed in the same place, right? It's all unified. It's all right there, which also means you know that it's all going to be in sync, both in terms of content, but then also timing, which is huge because there's frequently, especially with large organizations, breaks in terms of different reporting pieces or elements kind of getting out of sync or out of whack with each other. This is a way to like completely avoid that issue and have all of it centrally controlled and unified. So to do that, we're going to hop into lab 3. So hopefully this is starting to look a little familiar. The top section, this is lab 1. This was lab 2. All we're doing is popping out another copy here to increase out the number of replications of the same data set. You can do that in the copy snap really easily if you open it up. It's literally just hitting the plus sign, and that'll add another piece at the bottom here. So you can see that. So I can work with that too. It's actually not something I want to do in this case. So let me get rid of it just as easily. And I'm going to let that revalidate. And so one of the other things that's really cool is that there is some sort of in situ like AI that you can leverage as well to kind of help make this a little bit simpler. It's really nice if since you have, you know, the introspection Jay was talking about, showing you fields that need to be kind of, you know, linked to each other, but you may not want to, you know, sort of drag and drop for, you know, 15, 20, 30 fields. I'm always looking for a way to make it, you know, autocomplete and be a little easier. So to do that, we can do that inside the mapper as well. Wait for this to kind of catch up with what I'm doing real quick. But there's an auto link function inside of the mapper. So I'll show you that in a moment. But what we're doing here, this bottom section, is to just do another mapping activity and then write records into a database here in Snowflake. So what you're able to do if you pop this open, these are the fields that are inside of the table inside of Snowflake. So really basic, a full sort of production version of this would be significantly more expansive. Can show you examples of that sort of as a follow-on if you have interest or curious to see like what a people data warehouse like probably could and should look like. We have some designs that are available for that. But what you're able to do is, instead of going through this process of sort of finding things and dragging and dropping it to sort of make things match up, instead, I'm going to pull this out real quick. This is also a helpful thing to know too. You can always disable a snap as well. That way, when you're running validations, you're not invoking something that you don't want to use. I'm just going to plop this guy back in here. Save that. And we're going to get something that doesn't work, and that's okay because it's going to be expecting something here, and we haven't done any configuration yet. All right, cool. So we know this isn't working, which makes total sense because we haven't done anything with it. And what I want to do is just hit this auto link. And that's going to run through the fields on the left, the input schema, look at the target schema on the right. And SnapLogic's going to present you with the options to sort of auto sync those corresponding schemas together, right? So you'll get a chance to kind of review those things and then make your selection. So shortly, it should present us with what that looks like for this particular case. All right, great. So you get the schema on the target schema here on the left. This is what we're trying to write into in the database. And on the right, it's done a pretty good job of figuring out like what we should or shouldn't kind of pull in, right? So it's done a little bit of abstraction and said, hey, I know this isn't job title. It's not exactly the same, but is business title maybe what you're looking for? And you'll kind of get like a strength score to assess to say, yeah, that is or is not what I want. Same kind of thing with email. The others, you can see it just sort of did the work of getting rid of some of the case sensitivity. In this case, I'm happy with everything. So I'm just going to say take all. And that's it, right? So you've now got the input schema mapped out to the target path. I don't have to do anything else on here except sort of save and execute, and we're done, right? So in this case where you've got like, 5 fields that you're messing with on the input schema for this table, it's not too bad to have kind of gone through that process ourselves. But if you're looking at a really big set of web services or a lot of them, this can be a really fast way to kind of get a kickstart and get a little bit of insight into the things that you do and don't want to accept as the auto link function is sort of kicking off recommendations to you. So I wanted to make sure that you saw that as well, because it's a pretty cool feature and one that we utilize pretty heavily as well. But then ultimately this will write into the table inside of Snowflake. So again, very, very easy to connect to. Any other questions at this point? Anybody got something burning? They just want to raise their hand. You can always, ping us privately as well if you don't want to have it out in the public forum, or connect after the presentation too.
Well, if we don't have any other questions, we do want to let you know we have a special offer for everyone attending. You can get a free consultation for your HCM or Workday project, and we'll help you scope that project and consult you along the way. So if you'd like to take advantage of that, we included a slide, Rich, on that if you want to show it.
Sure.
Otherwise, I'll put in the chat Rich's email address to everyone, and you can reach out to Rich, and we work closely with Zach and Jay, so we can schedule that with you. It's rdill@snaplogic.com. Just put that in the chat. So we're happy to work with you to make sure that you're successful with your free trial and to answer any further questions from today. So thank you everyone for joining our hands-on lab today. We appreciate how interactive it was. We hope it was helpful for you. We really would, appreciate any feedback. So please reach out to us. We want to make sure that you're getting what you need. So with that, we will say good day and take care. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. This was excellent.
Thank you, Brian.
Glad we helped.
Thank you.